Hi, welcome to my next free tutorial Friday. This week I have this actually proof page, as you can see by this color bar up here in grayscale. Proof page from my How to Draw book, and I did a little sketch here, a little line drawing, and I wanted to test the paper to see how it was to draw on. So I took a light gray marker and with a high-tech pen, one of these guys, Pilot High-Tech pen, I did a little quick sketch, which I did not record because I did this the other day. Didn't think to record it, didn't have my camera set up. But I thought I might just try to, or there is no try, right? There's only do or do not. So I am going to put some marker on this and give it a test to see how this paper takes the marker. And I'm going to start with, I have some toner gray, and I thought I'm going to put this toner gray here, and then I'm going to fade it into a cool gray above, and that's kind of the idea there is that it's flying over some warmer land below, and that warm light is bouncing up underneath it. And we'll see if it's warm enough. I didn't have the right values in my warm markers. So let's start with a little bit of, that was just a Copic marker number 2, and I'll take the 2 in cool, and this is the same technique I used for my sketches at the back of Liftoff. All those little business cards where I did those 109 sketches like this that had a little bit of value. And then we're going to test it at the end here to see how it handles gouache. We're going to leave, imagine that it's top lit. Let's take and change a bit of the local value. I'm going to say this part is darker, like it's painted dark. And those, as you can imagine, those business cards were very, very tiny, as this is very tiny. But by using the brush tip on the smaller round Copic marker, you can actually go in there and block out things pretty easily. So I'm imagining this is top lit. Maybe the light's a little bit in front, so I'm going to get my core shadow through here on the radius of the front of the wing. The end of the wing should be a little darker. And also this is vertical, my rudder, so that should also be darker. And then as it flares into this part here that's wider and has a little radius, then it'll start to pick up the light again. So let's do that. A little shadow side there. And so you can see that I'm actually getting the cool marker is everything from the widest point of the fuselage up, and the warm continues then below. So I'm getting a little bit of a temperature change and a color shift across there. This is the cool one, so I'm just going to push that core shadow a bit stronger. Let's push the end of this main wing. That's vertical as well. I'm going to leave a little bit of light up there. I will come back when this has dried a bit and try to use a little bit of white pencil. Actually, I'm trying to leave the paper now. You know what? Let's darken that all the way down, and then we'll just bring it back with white pencil. It'll be a nice test for this paper. So let's go ahead and get rid of that white paper. And I'm going to say the brightest bright, like it's all kind of painted this dull gray. And even though it's not very aerodynamic, let's add a bit more form to the fuselage through here. So let's see, which way does this go, in or out? Let's make this little exhaust port poke out. So in order to do that, I want to shade the underside with a warm marker. Might already be too blue there. But we'll come back and hit the top of it with a little bit of white gouache or white pencil in a minute. Let's see, what else can I do? Well, let's imagine that the fuselage has a section like this, right? And then my canopy sits on top, and there's our pilot, right? And then it rolls under like that. So the light's coming down this direction, and so we'd get a little reflective highlight here and here. But if the side of my canopy is going to be a little bit darker, this is going to get darker. Core shadow is going to be down there. Main wing goes like that. So that's my front view. So let's go back here, and let's intensify the core shadow. underside of the elevator at the back. Could even get maybe just a hint of a cast shadow blending into the shadow side. And then a little coarse shadow through there. This will all stay in the light, but we said in the light, the value, the brightest it was going to be was a value 2. So let's put that on there. This is one of those lots of clicking, lots of marker caps on and off. And let's drop that. And coarse shadow, end of the wing, sort of blunt, sort of cut off. And let's add a little bit, let's see, this is a C3. See if I can get a little bit of form change through there. The side of that canopy here, which will be a little bit darker where it's painted, just where that star is. And if I want to get a little gradation up, I like to spin this just like I would if I was trying to do some nice line work, and try to blend my markers up. So I usually use, let's say, take like a 2 and a 4, so a C2 and 4, and I'll use the 2 to pull the 4 out of the core shadow. So if I darken through here with a nice strong core shadow, end of the wing, end of the tail, then what you can do is you could blend that, get it a little bit wetter first, and let's pull that up. And then I just use a lighter touch as it goes up towards the top. So just pull that gradation up. And I want to try to add another little form through here. It's kind of turning into like a toned paper sketch where you'd start with some value on some toned paper, and then we're going to add some white to pull back up some of the other shapes. So let's see, what am I going to do? Right through here might be nice to have a little bit more of a form change. So grab a 3 and right through there and darken that, and then before it dries, grab the wrong marker. That was a 4. I wanted to grab a 2. Anyway, it's alright. So I'm going to make that bulge out a bit. Let's darken this again through here. And now the local value of my painted top could go darker, right? So there's no reflections from the fuselage here when the pilot's looking out over the front. So that's all painted darker, and that's darker. And let's make this whole thing here painted darker. I'm missing a propeller. I could say it's spinning so fast you can't see it. That's the easy way out. Or I could put a prop shaft there and just do this with the marker quickly. Something like that. Which isn't going to be fun when I paint blue. We'll probably paint the blue around it, and then I'll probably come back and have to hit that marker stroke again. Alright, let me run and grab a pencil. Okay, I've got a pencil, 2 pencils actually. Prismacolor white and black. And I think this bottom of the plane is too bright. So let's go back, grab a marker. I'm going to put that into shadow. It's just like it's, flying over this sand that's like really close, and but if it's still this local color, this 2, it can't get this bright below, so I'm going to knock that all down and push it here so it looks like it's more of an appropriate shadow side, but still warmer than the top. So I've got a T4 here, and let's push it back here. Let's roll this under as well. The nice thing about this, you could actually be really sloppy around the outside because it's going to be, I'm going to try to put a gouache background on this. Now when I squint my eyes, that works a little better for my light side and dark side. Where I've darkened this cowl around this propeller with a 5, should probably grab something like a 7 or 8 cool gray and just put that little core shadow and a little gradation up the side, like so, just to reinforce that form change across there. let's see, this is probably also gets a little bit darker as it wraps up onto the side of the canopy. That gets a little darker through there. And I think that's about it. We could also now start to divide out and say, well, are there any other local value changes that are because of the graphics? So that is it painted dark? Maybe this is just a dark circle instead of a light circle. Maybe this little here, that little material change is dark. You could also take entire panels and darken them. We can do this entire leading edge, for instance, or maybe just this flap is painted a different color. It should be a warm gray. Although I don't think I have that marker. Yeah, I do. Sorry, got a little cool down there. So that flap is painted a darker gray, and so is this dot on the bottom. And maybe this little panel here is also painted a darker gray. So you can start to break that up and chop it up as much as you like. And what about the star? Something like that. All right, now we'll throw a little bit of pencil on this. So I got to turn it a little bit so I can get a little bit nicer control. So that little, I'm going to say there's a little step in the fuselage there. And this is where having that lighter gray up here, as opposed to just leaving the white, helps the white of the pencil to show up. Although it's not going to show up much on the video, I don't think. Maybe just hit it with a little bit of white gouache when I'm done. So just that edge of the wing, maybe there's a little radius across the top. Maybe just catch a little bit of light right there. And this top of that little scoop. And maybe just a little bit here. I could even go darker, but now that I put pencil on it, I don't want to touch it with marker. So I'm going to leave it basically light. All right, let's try some gouache. So I have no idea how this paper is going to take this. Smart thing to do would be go over here, find another sketch, and give it a test. So just get a flat brush, and I think if I probably work quickly, it's not going to ripple on me too much. So we'll do that as my material testing and give it a second to dry and see what happens. And even if it is going to stroke and not look so flat, if you crisscross your strokes, it'll actually look a little interesting. And also it should dry. The strokes will go away now. Blow on it a little bit, dry it a little faster. I think it'll work for this little sketch. So let's give it a go. All right, so just off to the side, nothing special, just flat brush, right, some gouache, and we'll just go for it. So I did a whole bunch of these when I did those cards in that card collection of those spaceships in Liftoff. And I would show those if I had some of them around, but I don't. I have a couple at home still. But I know there's some of them floating around out there because I sold almost all of them as part of the limited edition of those two books. So if you have one, then you know exactly what the real deal looks like. Okay. Some of that, and then I'll just spin it around so it gives me access to that edge. And what's going to happen when we put this blue field of color around this plane is that the value structure of the plane is going to change, and also the silhouette is going to become more important, and it's also going to start to look a little bit more real because you can see when I'm painting, I'm taking my time and I'm being careful, but I'm also painting just over, trying to paint just over the black line. So that very fine line that was there, and don't worry about those sort of things, that black line there, you can always come back and add it. So I'm going to ignore that little cable that's on there. And the other thing I'm doing is I'm working with a quite thick mixture of gouache, because I don't want it to wet out this paper that much. If it's thin with a lot of water, it's going to really ripple. It's already starting to ripple, but I'm trying to work with a bit thicker gouache, and it's about, I haven't touched a brush in forever, so this is quite the test today. Well, I did do that brush pen sketch, but that's a little different than this big sort of, this is a bit of a floppy flat brush I chose here. Okay. Just keep working around here. I'll come back and do the inside the canopy in just a moment with a small round brush. I have a little trick, or a couple of steps that I like to do. So here I try to leave that line when I paint past the canopy. This paper's holding up, it's not too bad actually. So not only can you deface the how to draw book with drawing on top of the marker sketches that are already there, like I did, I actually posted, I didn't post it to my YouTube channel, but on my Facebook page you can find a little video of me adding some line work to one of these looser marker sketches like these guys down here. And on the I actually recorded it. I showed a sped up one of that on my Facebook page, but on the app for the book, it's real time with audio explanation. Okay, now we've got to figure out what are we going to do. I say like you're helping me. I wish you were. In this case, I'm all alone trying to figure this out. So what am I going to do up here about this propeller? I think our best plan of attack is probably to ignore that it's there and then just redraw it quickly with the markers over the top. And if you let the gouache dry and you work quickly over it, you can lay back marker on top of it without too much trouble. Okay, almost around. And see what I mean? But you could just run the marker right out and the gouache will cover, which is really nice. If I was James Gurney, I'd have a much better solution for what to do with that propeller, because he would just paint it, of course. But I'm not, so I have to make it up as I go. All right. Got a little bit wet there. All right, we'll let that dry for a moment. Actually, let me hit the cockpit area. So what I would do with that, and when I did those cards, which were about half this size, maybe, no, two-thirds maybe, they were quite tiny. I would come back here and with a small round brush, and this might not even be small enough, so we go inside the cockpit like we're looking through clear glass to the blue sky, and I would carefully paint around this guy. So just exactly what I did with the exterior of the plane. So now on the inside of the cockpit, like so. And you could leave out a little highlight, of course, and use the white paper, or you can do what I'm going to do next, which is to paint it back over the top after we do one other technique. So let that dry for a minute and we'll come right back. Okay, let's put some finishing touches on this little sketch. One of the techniques I did on those lift-off cards is I came back after the gouache was dry and grabbed another marker and tinted the glass and go right over everything that's behind the glass. In this case, I made my glass green. So it'll shift the marker and it will shift everything behind the glass. So I just grabbed a bright green marker and threw it over the top. Then we're going to put a little reflective highlight with some white gouache back over the top of that. When I look at this, if I had to give it a crit, I'd say probably I could use more object versus background value change. So that means my overall plane could be a little bit brighter, and this could be darker, or vice versa. Maybe this could be a lighter blue and that could be overall darker. Because right now, if I squint my eyes, the silhouette's maybe not as strong as I would like. So, but you know, that's how you learn. Do a sketch, look at it, and figure out how to make it better. So let's, and another thing I thought I could do is push this coarse shadow and push the shadow side even more. So I just grabbed a T5 and try to do that without going over the top of the gouache after I made that nice line there to clean up my silhouette. And there we go. And now we need the propeller. So let's try a 3. Thing you have to remember with markers, I'm going to grab a C3 and a C4. No, C5, C3 and 5. Thing you have to remember with markers, you can only go darker. So start out lightly. So I'm going to say that there's that propeller shaft, and it's moving so fast we barely see it. So just do that, come back with a 5, just right in the middle, just where it's moving a little bit slower, we see a little bit more of the propeller. Let it dry. The markers will dry lighter, so you just let it see if it's enough. If it's not, you just keep hitting it a couple of times. Okay, let's do a little bit of white gouache. So I'm going to grab my round brush again. And come back. And let's see, let's pick out a couple of spots to hit. Well, I know I want to clean up that line work through there a little bit. And I don't really want to see a line there. I'd rather see value holding that edge. So I'm going to paint that out with white. And if you do this right, this is when you can get a lot more realism into your little quick sketch. Well, it's not turning into such a quick sketch because I'm trying to explain so many steps, but get the idea. I'm just catching a little bit of light on that edge. Let's catch a little bit across the top, like there's a little radius here. And what you can do is by getting rid of some of those lines around your object, you can make it start to look much more real, so that there aren't edges. Your edges aren't held with lines, but they're held with value. So the top of this little exhaust port, let's clean that up. And let's pronounce this. Let's make this really pop out here. And I do that quite a bit with these little sketches, is just grab my finger and smear that little bit of gouache to smooth out the edge, because you can't really do gradations easily. And you see how I got rid of that line as well, so now I'm using just the value. Might be a little bit too light to show up on screen, but I hope it shows up. It's always hard to get the camera exactly adjusted for the right value range. So let's clean up that edge. Something like that. Let's do this one. Let it blend into here a little bit so that flat sort of goes together. Lighten up through here. And we got a little radius across the top. So I'm treating this like it's a matte surface, my plane. So nice and bright across the top here. Maybe the light comes from a little bit from the left, so I could justify that, brightening that up. Let's catch a couple of these little details and let them run out over the blue gouache. The round brush is just amazing. You know, it's so superior to a pencil or a pen or anything for getting in those small details. It's really my favorite. And you can, of course, pronounce a few of these little part lines, but it's supposed to be aerodynamic, so, you know, if it had those big part lines, that wouldn't be very aerodynamic. Okay, one last little one over on the glass. I'll load up my brush a little bit, try to get a little bit less watery gouache, because it's going to go gouache on gouache, and then I want it to be nice and opaque. So I'm going to split it a little bit, just a little bit on the front, and then a little bit right behind here. Something like that. Bright little reflective highlight. If you're getting really detailed, you could go in and add a little reflective highlight on a shiny little helmet. Probably nothing on the instrument panel. And maybe we'll add a couple little graphics. Let's brighten it up with a bit of orange, couple of orange graphics. Okay, I've got a little bit of orange gouache, and just going to make some of these graphic elements pop a bit, just to have some bright touches of another color for this little sketch. And maybe this little graphic at the front is orange. Maybe the star here. That's a tiny star. I can hardly even see that star. What was I thinking? There's no way I can paint that. Not with this brush. It's definitely Friday. I'm talking to myself. This is going to have a little stripe around it. On the bottom of the wing, you say, oh, you can't use that same orange value as that part of the tail as you do on the bottom of the plane. And I would say, yes, you're right. So I'm going to have to darken that up. But I don't have all the gouache over here to mix a nice dark orange, so I'm going to cheat it by throwing a bit of a gray marker over the top as soon as it's dry. Let's go back to that T5. And let's just quickly knock that down a bit, drop it into shadow. In fact, I'll take that whole wing down a bit. Kind of reverse lighting this now, like there's a very strong reflective light source below. It's catching the underside of the wing, then a little bit less through here, and then more on the underside of the plane as it rolls back towards that reflected light source. Okay, I think that's probably about it. Oh, forgot my cable. I'm going to go back and grab this, there's this Pilot Hi-Tech C, and I'm going to draw that back in there over the top of the gouache. Let's see, it was coming from here and it was attaching right up there. Nice little straight line. And let's see, you could even use I could even grab my old brush pen instead of mixing up some black gouache, see if I can cover some of these elements here and go more black than what this original sketch was. And add a few more little details here and there. Even if, let's say you want to put some stripes there on the back, grab like a 3 and go right over the gouache, and it will darken down everything. It won't absorb over the gouache into the paper exactly the same, but it'll get you close. So for a quickie sketch, it's okay. All right, I think that's it. You should sign it if you're proud of it. I don't know that I am, so I'm not going to sign this one today, but it was fun to break out some markers again and a little bit of gouache. I haven't done one of these in a long time, but they're a lot of fun too. A lot of fun to do. That's why I was able to do so many for liftoff. Good fun. And I think one last touch is that the post for my propeller here should be darker. Just to connect it a little bit more to my plane. All right, that's it. Have a great week, and hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.